Jackson.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to DSM pregame live, streaming to you exclusively here on DSM Media's YouTube channel. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you check us out on Twitter at DSM_media. Hit that follow button while you're at it. We greatly appreciate it. And you can check the link tree out in our bio. It will take you to every social media platform we are available on. I am one half of your host, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. To my right, my co-host Scotty. You can find him as well at Scotty Drown. Sixers Heat preview. My man, how are you doing on this Monday night?
I am doing very well. It's crazy to hear myself say that, and I know it's just Monday and getting through the day. I'm
just
happy to
straight
be off
lies out the jump. Like I'm actually,
I'm happy to be off work, but like, damn, after that Saturday night fiasco, I mean, come on, man. I had let it slip out of my mind, and as soon as I said I'm having an all right day, it came right back into my head because that was. You texted me on Saturday night, and you said it best. I'm sick. I'm sick. Because not only is it the way you lost, but now, no matter what, you're losing the season series to the Boston Celtics. That hurt. It hurt to lose at home. It hurt the way you lost, giving up a 15-point lead. Like, there's so many levels to hurt and sickness and disgust in that loss that, man, I take it back. I'm not doing well today. I'm not. Not until we get this done tonight.
Like, it would have hurt a lot. It would have hurt regardless. Jason Tatum, tie game, buries a 3 out of a timeout with 1.3 seconds left. That's going to be a killer no matter what. But the fact that Joel Embiid knocks down one of the most incredible shots I've ever seen that would have sent it to overtime with the roof blowing off of the Wells Fargo Center, and he's about 0.2, 0.3 seconds too late because he had to get a running head start and there was just not enough time on the clock. That's what made it so much more painful. If he would have shot it over the backboard or missed by 10 feet, it would have been like, damn, that was like level 2 of the pain scale. The missing out on that great overtime that we would have been able to see just takes it to like level 8, level 9 for me.
But
it embodies just, it's ironic how low that is in terms of pain for Philly fans as of late. Like that, like I'm talking levels, like that's like a 3 in terms of everything that we've been through the last couple of seconds.
Yeah, that is a great point because I talked about that. I talked about it literally on TikTok on the previous game against the Memphis Grizzlies where they started really slow against the Grizzlies. And I'm just like, man, we are dealing with some like painful stuff right now. And that was the Sixers' chance to kind of prove what we were talking about on Thursday night before that game.
Back.
Prove it right? Like that we were right for believing in the Sixers. But they ultimately come back, win that game, and have us electric for Saturday. And then to come back and face that hurt. I think that's what it was, right? You came back in that game against Memphis, you're building some steam after the All-Star break, and then just a disgusting way to fall apart. Not only the Embiid shot, but like Phil said, shouldn't have come down to that. Al Horford hits like 5 threes and brings him back from 15 down. That's the other side of things that you just don't even want to think about is Al Horford getting threes. Like,
I will say, like you've mentioned it twice, and I do agree with you. It is painful that the Sixers led for 85 to 90% of this ball game. It felt like it is painful that it was Al Horford just banging 3 after 3 to mount that comeback. But I do hope, and I haven't seen too much of it on my timeline, thankfully, that Sixers fans aren't clinging to this. You didn't blow a 15-point lead. They were out 15 with about 9 minutes left in the third quarter. Okay, not the fourth quarter, the third quarter.
Yeah.
Reversely, the Sixers were down double digits with 6 minutes left in the game in the fourth quarter, and Boston blew that. Now, Boston ended up winning the game, so you don't think of it that way. But it's just the totality of the fact that teams go on runs, man. It's the NBA. It's the way the game is played now. If they were up 15 with 5 minutes left and collapsed and lost, then I'd be freaking out right along with you. They were up 15 basically to start the second half against the best team in the association at the moment. So it hurts. I will say, as bad as painful of a loss as it was, if you took away from that game that the Sixers are not legit contenders. They're not favorites. But if you come away with the fact that they're not contenders, that they can't compete with anyone, I don't know that we can have a serious conversation. I don't know that I can talk to you about the game of basketball. Listen, the Celtics seem like our Achilles heel. I get it. You can go back to the Dario Saric and Robert Covington days when we couldn't get by them in the playoffs, the bubble, and Embiid, Harford. I get all of it. We're 0-3 against them this year. They're the best team in the league, and the Sixers, after beating the 2 seed in the West, led most of the game and had Jason Tatum hit a step back 3 with 1 second left to seal the deal. So if your takeaway was that the Sixers aren't contenders for the NBA Finals, I really don't know what to tell you to change your mind, because you're just a negative person and your life is probably a little bit miserable.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I took the loss hard, and it's a tough one to swallow.
For sure.
Because you want the Sixers, you want to be able to have the conversation that the Sixers are the best team in the NBA. Like, every Sixers fan wants that conversation to be had.
You wanted to beat
you
Memphis
have to win that game
to
say that, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is no argument in the entire world or community of the NBA that has the Celtics under any other team. The Celtics are the best team in the NBA. They've been that way for the majority of the season. It's been the whole season. I think there was like one day where the Bucks slipped ahead of the Boston Celtics in the standings. So they've been on top of the Eastern Conference and the entire NBA for this entire year. You're talking about Jason Tatum, a guy, he did struggle in that game. That was another discouraging part, but you had other guys on our team that struggled too, right? Maxey, Harden. Harden struggled from the field. I shouldn't say he struggled overall, but he struggled from the field.
5 of 16 or whatever.
It's one of those things where you've lost to this team twice. I get it. It's a drag to lose to them a third time, because now you can't win or even that series. But at the same time, there's a reason, and there is a viable reason as to why they beat you. You do have to adjust. The one caveat to that, and the one thing that I would say to Sixers fans that feel that way, the difference between the Celtics and the Bucks that I've noticed when we play the Celtics and the Bucks is literally Brook Lopez and Al Horford. There are no other teams that can offer that type of lineup against the Sixers, where you have a legitimate center out at the 3-point line the entire game. Yeah. Horford stands out at the 3-point line the entire game. The Sixers have to adjust to that. They have to find out and figure out what they can do to stop that. But aside from that, there's no reason to feel like you can't beat these teams. You have been in every single, well, the one game against the Celtics, that second game against the Celtics was discouraging, right? Because they had nobody there. You know, in this game, mano a mano, you had both teams at full strength. You can compete with the Celtics. You had them down 15 at one point. You do have a plausible way of guarding Jason Tatum, which is probably the most important thing when you're playing the Boston Celtics. Last 2 games, mind you, Jason Tatum hits that game-winning 3. That's fine. It's a great play, and he ultimately wins that game. But he struggled in the last 2 games that he's played against the Sixers. He went off in that first game. But I think you can pull positives and negatives from every single loss, every single win. But we got to just kind of bring it back down, man. It's one game out of 82. One game out of 82. We knew this stretch was going to be tough. So I can't deal with all the knee-jerk reaction that's going to happen over this last month or so, man. It's going to get crazy because there's going to be games that they lose. It's going to happen. You're playing legitimate contenders in the NBA. This is the cream of the
toughest schedule down the stretch.
What better way to get ready for the playoffs, though? Yeah. Take this loss now, right? Take it now. Let Jason Tatum hit that game winner now in Philly.
Right, we see them April 4th again.
In the playoffs.
We see them April 4th. Now, listen, I'm not asking fans to be encouraged or overly optimistic about what they saw, because like we said, we started the show off with how painful that loss was, and you just wanted to come away with that win so badly after the performance that Embiid and PJ Tucker and Tobias Harris give you, and the way that Scotty just alluded to, limiting and shutting down Jason Tatum for the most part. But the bottom line is, they've been playing great basketball for the last 2+ months. They just mounted a comeback and beat the 2 seed in the West in the Memphis Grizzlies. And then 2 nights later went wire to wire with the best team in the association and lost by a last second 3 by one of the best players in the association. So again, I'm not asking you to be rah, look how good we did and second place is good enough. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying you can take positives out of the game. out from that game, I should say.
Exactly. And I think people just need to like bring it back. Like look in the mirror or in your Sixers jersey or whatever you need to do to like come back to self-realization. Like you're talking about the Sixers compared to the Celtics. The Celtics are the best team in the league. The fact that you're having a conversation about this is a good thing in itself. Be happy where the Sixers are at because there are 15 to 20 other teams that wish they could be where the Sixers are right now. They're in a good spot. They're a great team, I would say. They have a chance at the championship. You don't have to go around saying the Sixers are going to be the champions this year. You don't have to do that. You can still root for your squad and have faith in them because I think they've given us enough so far to have that faith, right?
You could probably argue that there's about 6 or 7 legitimate championship contenders from both conferences combined.
Exactly.
Right? The Sixers are one of them. And realistically, they're probably top 4 or 5 in that conversation.
Exactly.
I don't know what else to tell you. We'll see when we get to the playoffs. With that said, another Eastern Conference foe tonight, man. Let's get into this game at the Wells Fargo Center before the Sixers take a little bit of a road trip against this tough schedule. They're taking on the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler tonight. Is this the first time we're seeing the Heat this year?
This is the first time this year. Yeah,
That's
we got
wild,
all 4 matchups with the Heat in the last part of the year here.
That is wild. Obviously the Sixers lose their last game, but they are 4-5 in their last 5, winning 4 straight before the Boston loss. The Heat reversely are 1-4 in their last 5, losing 4 straight. Now the last 3 were on the road, but they're still on the road tonight as they come to Philly. Scotty, what are you looking for in this game? Sixers fully healthy. Dwayne Dedmon, the only guy listed as out tonight.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Dwayne Dedmon's like out until early March with a
Nerlens Noel just got bought out, by the way. Just throwing that one out there for you.
Man, I would drop Dedmon today and pick him up. And I'm not saying that Noel is going to come in and change his fortunes, but it's worth a shot more than Dwayne Dedmon. Nonetheless, like you said, you have a fully healthy Sixers team tonight. Tyler Hero, last time I checked, he was questionable. Kevin Love probable. Kyle Lowry out. So it'll be interesting to see who they have running the point. I would imagine that would be between Hero and I feel like I'm forgetting somebody that they just picked up. Who did they just no, that was Kevin Love they picked up. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. Who's going to guard Harden? Is that going to be Jimmy Butler? Because you don't have PJ Tucker there to do all the dirty work. I think that's something that the Heat are running into there. But it's funny, you come into this game and the last thing I've heard from Jimmy Butler. And it's funny it happens before this game that he comes out and says this to the public, but he's tired of losing. Something's got to change. It's so funny that he has this revelation right before the Sixers game, right when he comes to Philly. But nonetheless, that speaks to where the Miami Heat are at right now. You're talking about the worst offensive team in the NBA. They are 30th ranked on offense, offensive rating, points per game, whatever you want to look at. They are the worst offensive team in the NBA. Not only that, they are 2 spots ahead of the Sixers when it comes to rebounding. They're 26th in the NBA when it comes to rebounding. So they're one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA. They're one of the bottom 10 assisting teams in the NBA. So what that tells me, right? They don't have a bunch of rebounding. They don't have a bunch of size. They don't have a facilitator there. No Kyle Lowry, no point guard really. And then on top of that, they don't have anybody to run their offense. So that's what they're running into right now. That's the way the Miami Heat look. And so what I would say as my first key to victory, starting today off here against the Miami Heat, controlling Jimmy Butler. I mean, he comes out, he says he's tired of losing. What's that mean? Jimmy Butler is going to try to have a masterclass tonight to will his team into a win. We have the counter to that now. We have the Jimmy stopper. We have PJ Tucker now. Right? What they used on our James Harden last year in the playoffs, we now have him to use on Jimmy Butler. So that is a good thing. But you look at Jimmy Butler's numbers last year in the playoffs against the Sixers in that second round series. He averaged 27.5 points per game, 7.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists. Covered them across the board, right? That helps with rebounding, that helps with scoring, that helps with facilitating and assisting. So we just can't allow Jimmy to have that heroic type of effort, that type of performance tonight. And I think the Sixers can come away with a win. But that would be my first key to victory tonight. Just keep Jimmy Butler under control.
In a nutshell, you just touched on everything that I have for tonight. That's your first key. It's everything for me tonight. The Heat have a problem, and it's very simple. The Miami Heat have a problem putting the ball through the cylinder, Scotty, and how crazy it is that fall from grace. Now they're no scrubs. They're not a bad team by any stretch of the imagination. They're going to be in the thick of it for the playoffs, but just looking at their offensive struggles, a team that was, it feels like 10 seconds away from a finals berth last year.
Yeah.
The fall from grace for Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat is kind of alarming, but you mentioned some of the numbers here. 30th in points per game, 29th in field goal percentage, 28th in 3-point field goal percentage, 25th in true shooting percentage, 27th in effective field goal percentage, 27th in offensive rating. They have a problem, and it's called putting the ball through the hoop. First key to victory, main key to victory, protect the paint. Make the Miami Heat beat you from beyond the arc and from the perimeter, because I don't think they can. Kyle Lowry, he's older, he's slower, he hasn't been as effective as in the last year or so, but still, he's not in the lineup tonight. They just don't play Duncan Robinson anymore with that terrible contract. Make them beat you from the perimeter. If Tyler Hero goes 10 for 15 from 3, whatever, man, you find other ways, but that's my first key. And you hit the second part. They're one of the few teams in the league that shouldn't crush the Sixers on the boards. They're 25th in rebounding. We're 28th in rebounding. So one of the main problems in terms of getting on the glass, it's not a huge advantage for the opposing team tonight in terms of the 76ers. PJ Tucker, you mentioned him on Jimmy Butler. He had 16 boards last game. He's been outstanding. You and I have talked about him in these big moments. Former team, I think he takes this one personal tonight. I like PJ Tucker on the glass. We'll get into that later in the show. But yeah, man, you just talked about even assists. They're 23rd in sharing the ball. They're 23rd in assist total. So their offense is stagnant. It's slow. They do not run at a fast pace, and they do not score the ball efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of it is simple in a nutshell. What's wrong with the Miami Heat, right? They're just not a great offensive team all around. They are the number 2 defensive ranked team in the NBA, to be fair. So that's where their bread and butter is, on the defensive side of the ball, which makes sense. You got guys like Jimmy Butler. You got guys like Bam Adebayo. They're great on the defensive end. But sometimes you just have to get buckets, right? And I think that's another key to victory that we can throw in there, just controlling the turnovers, not giving them easy ones. And that works to what you said as well, controlling the paint as well, controlling the points in the paint, that is. But just controlling the turnovers, don't give them any outlet into easy buckets, right? They don't need to get easy buckets tonight. Make everything, like you said, behind the arc, control the lane, control the points in paint. And then I would take it another step further, just as far as looking at a matchup here as my other key to victory. I'm looking at Joel Embiid, man, and I think he should be able to take advantage of Bam Adebayo tonight, get him in foul trouble, right? Get him out the game. He does it to every other center. Bam Adebayo is one of the more aggressive. He is one of the better defending centers in the NBA, but he's one of the more aggressive defending centers in the NBA. Get him into foul trouble, do your thing, and make sure you win that matchup. I think that's a huge thing here. One way they could lose is if Embiid's having a bad night. He's doing, turning the ball over, and Bam Adebayo is hitting every board and beating him to the spot, right? Don't let that happen. Embiid needs to win that matchup as he should, and that should give them full control in this game. So I would just say Embiid be better than Bam Adebayo tonight, and ultimately control Jimmy Butler, control those turnovers, and you should be good. And to your point, even about Tyler Hero, because it's funny, I just wanted to look at their last game, which, mind you, these guys just lost to the Charlotte Hornets, man. Just lost to the Charlotte Hornets. Like, I know it's
Brooklyn Nets.
Situations change and stuff, but you lost to a team that is at the bottom of the NBA, right? And I know we've had our fair share of losses here and there. I know how it works, but that speaks to something. That was their 4th loss in a row. They were already on a 3-game losing streak.
They lost to Miami by 29.
They needed a win.
I mean, Milwaukee by 29.
Milwaukee, yeah. So they're not a good team. And even in this game against Charlotte, you had Tyler Hero with 33 points. He was 6 for 12 from the 3-point line. He did his thing, and it still wasn't enough. That still only got them to 103 points. So while they're the number 2 defensive team in the NBA, they're one of the worst offensive teams in the NBA. It's not like the Sixers are some pushover on the defensive side of the ball either, right? The Sixers are the 3rd ranked team in the NBA on defense. So there's no reason that the Sixers should lose this game.
No,
but we know the underlying caveat here is that it is the Miami Heat. It is Eric Spoelstra. and the whole Heat culture thing that goes along with them, there is just that little creep of doubt in my mind where I'm like, oh, when are the Heat going to bounce back and look like the Heat again, right? There is that little doubt that can creep in there.
I mean, and it is funny because the next 2 games are against the Miami Heat. We have the game tonight, and we have the game 2 days from now or 3 days from now in South Beach in Miami. So it'll be interesting. We're going to get a heavy dose of them this week. But you brought up a great point. 2nd-ranked defense, 3rd-ranked defense. When this game gets mucked up, if there's turnovers, if there's shot clock violations, if there's whatever the case may be, who can you turn to on both sides to get a bucket? The Sixers should have multiple options. The Heat have 1 or 2. And it's crazy. I watched Jimmy Butler, man. I don't know where you would put him in terms of your rankings, in terms of top 15, 20, 25 nowadays. And I know it was many years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago, that he was in a Sixers uniform. But when he was acquired, he was a legit scoring threat. 2-3 years ago, he was a legit scoring threat. I don't have that fear in Jimmy at all. Now, maybe he'll make me eat my words tonight. Maybe he'll go out there and give me 31. I don't know. I don't view Jimmy Butler as a scoring threat anymore. They have Tyler Hero, and maybe Jimmy's going to get you 16, 17, 18, somewhere in that range. Maybe I'm undervaluing him a bit, but I just have not seen the explosiveness from Jimmy in terms of scoring the ball. And I think that translates to the Heat's problem of the 30th ranked team in points per game this year. Not a key, not a matchup. Well, it's a key, but it's not a matchup. It's personnel for the Sixers that I'm looking at tonight. The bench has to be better, right? It is probably the main reason the Sixers lost that game the other night, getting outsgured.
I think that's a great point here, too.
27-12, whatever the case was. But I'm looking specifically at the two guard position, starting lineup and off the bench. The Sixers are lacking production from that position. Tyrese Maxey is struggling mightily. He was not good on Saturday night, and that is putting it mildly against the Boston Celtics. DeAnthony Melton gave you almost nothing the other night. I mean, he gave you 7, but it was not a smooth 7 from D Melton. He was 2 for 4 from 3. I get it, but 2 boards, 2 assists. He did not give you much. And then obviously he was undersized on Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum throughout that guarding matchup. But really in his last 6, you got to go back to February 8th to get a solid performance out of D Melt. Well, I mean, he had the one against the Cavs, excuse me. So 5 of his last 6, he's had 5.0 points, 3 points, 0 points, and 7 points. That is not going to cut it, especially if Tyrese Maxey is not going to come off the bench and be that explosive, aggressive, keyword, aggressive Tyrese Maxey as of late.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you there. You got to combine 15 points from him. It was bad shooting on top of it. And I think the biggest thing, it's not even just the numbers, because the numbers do look bad, especially from that previous game. And D-Melt's last couple games, as you mentioned, haven't been great. But it's the eye test too, right? It just doesn't look right at times. Like D-Melt looks uncomfortable when he's taking shots at times. Like they look a little forced.
Yep.
Tyrese Maxey just looks completely passive. He's getting the ball and he's pass. If Harden and Embiid are in the game, he will not keep the ball in his hands. He's passing it to Embiid, or he's looking to Embiid, or he's passing it to Harden to facilitate. He's not worried about, and that's where that has to stop.
That is the opposite of the point of having him on the bench.
Exactly. You're supposed to be the spark plug off the bench. That is the point. And I think, Embiid, once again, talk about Embiid's maturity in this grand scheme of Sixers basketball. After that
having
game,
a conversation,
talks about how he had to have a conversation with the young guy. And that's what your leaders have to do. It didn't sound like he went at him. He didn't go at him necessarily in public first. He just had a conversation with him and then let the reporters know about it as well. And I think that not only, does that conversation help Tyrese Maxey, but then giving it to the reporters also holds Tyrese Maxey accountable.
Yep.
And I think that's what you have to do as a leader. It doesn't have to be derogatory. It doesn't have to be negative. It just has to be said. And he did say it. I thought he said it well. And I think that'll bode well for Maxey tonight, to your point, when we need more from him. I think Phil put the question on Twitter earlier today. Who needs to be at your maximum?
Maxey or Tobias?
Maxey or Tobias? I think Maxey is the more important guy there.
It's a clear answer. Tobias Harris was great the other night.
Right? He can give you other things. He can give you defensive rebounding at times when Maxey can't do that. Maxey's
And
not a good defender.
offensively,
He's
he
not a
was
good
great
rebounder.
against Boston.
Oh,
and it
yeah, he's
wasn't
been
enough.
great. He's been great. I'm just saying, when Tobias is having a bad game, he can at least affect
Right,
it
he
in
can
other
impact
ways.
it in other ways.
Maxey, if
My
he's not
point,
scoring the rock, if he's not shooting, if he's not comfortable,
right.
he's completely ineffective. He doesn't need to be on the court. And I'll take it a step further, even with the bench as a whole. George Niang's another guy. We'll talk about him in a little bit here, but he's another guy that has to get it going. If he is not hitting his threes, he can't be on the court. And so that's why he needs to lock in and start hitting those threes, or he's going to lose his spot. And I don't want that to happen, because we know how important George Niang can be when he's playing right.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of, maybe it's the All-Star break. I don't know. You just got to turn it around. You got to turn it around quick, because we're working with minimal time before we get to the playoffs here. But that's what these games are for. That's what it's for.
No, I'm glad you highlighted other guys on a 3-point line. When I mentioned off the bench, I mean, when I mentioned Tobias Harris, how he scored efficiently last game, scored, what do you have, 18-20 last game. It was great to see, but even that wasn't enough, because a great Tobias Harris offensive game is 18-21. A great Tyrese Maxey game is 26-30, right? So there is a difference to it. When you mention the rest of the bench in totality, the Sixers are going to have to work through this throughout this stretch, because right now, you mentioned George Niang has not played a lot of minutes. Why? Because he's not hitting shots. Shake Milton played 1 minute. He has not seen the floor a lot at the backup point guard position. Paul Reed played 4 minutes. Montrezl Harrell did not play. Dwayne Dedmon is out. Doc is going to small ball 5 because they have a backup 5 issue. Tyrese Maxey or DeAnthony Melton not giving you much so they have to figure out this bench unit. Jaden McDaniels, he can come in and muck up the game in a couple different ways. What do you have? 4 points the other night, missed a couple threes. So, he's not a reliable source that's going to give you double figures off the bench night in and night out. So those guys really have to start to pick it up. I think a game against the Heat is a perfect opportunity.
I agree. And I think bringing up McDaniels there, I think that's a great point, because he's a guy that I think can be really effective for us in the playoffs, but we can't have it be like this Paul Reed situation that we had last season, right? Where you just throw Paul Reed out there in the playoffs and say float, right? It can't be that. We need to get McDaniels in the game now, get him implemented, and get the chemistry right with our guys that we have on the roster around him before we get to the playoffs, so that we can have him. Say if you're playing the Boston Celtics, I think the Boston Celtics, for instance, that last game is like the perfect example of when Jalen McDaniels should get significant minutes.
Not to go back to this game and get back to the pain, but I was going to ask you this.
Why is he not guarding Tatum on that last shot? Yeah.
Would you have put him in the game?
The only excuse or benefit of doubt I'll give Doc Rivers in that situation, maybe he doesn't trust him in a big moment like that to not foul or not do something stupid, but in reality, yes. Yeah, I'm putting him in the game. He's 6'9". That makes too much
size
sense.
was everything.
Might be a game. No lie, Dylan. I'm such a guy. Like, if I was a head coach, I would be so open to adjusting game to game that I would have probably started him in this game. Maybe throw him on Jaylen Brown, and you can put whoever you want on Jason Tatum, whoever you originally had on him, right?
Right.
If it's D-Melt, if it's Tobias, whoever you want to throw on him. I think D-Melt was guarding him most of the game, but D-Melt's what, 6'2"? I'm not 100% sure. I don't want to miss.
No, it's a great. No, that was my initial thought, because listen, even if it's he's new, he's not fully acclimated to the defense. Hey, man, you see that guy right there? You don't leave his hip. He doesn't need another defense.
It's not complicated, right?
And once he got past Melton, it was a great move. I get it, but Tatum was essentially able to just raise up and shoot over DeAnthony Melton, the smaller guard.
Yeah.
So that's why I was just thinking that it was interesting. So I would like to see maybe McDaniels today, Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero,
give him a shot. Give him a shot.
What he can do today.
You gotta know if he can do it. We think he can do it given the athleticism, given what he's done on other teams. We need to know that he can do it before we get to the playoffs. And I think it works better for Doc in reality if you just play him a lot right now. Maybe for the next week, you just try it out, play him a lot.
You know why it bothers me?
Right?
Not that he's on the same level as who he was traded for, but Matisse Thybulle would have been in the game in that situation because of his defense and because he's a little bit bigger and longer.
Right.
He's not the same defensive specialist that Matisse Thybulle is. I'm not trying to relate it as that. But my point is Doc knows how to make these adjustments on a final possession, and you need the X, Y, and Z out there. I probably would have done it. I'm not trying to crush
Yeah.
Doc. It's a great play. It's a great shot by Tatum.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
it makes sense though, and I think it just feeds into what we're talking about tonight, and it goes to that backup center position as well. You just got to be willing to try things. But tonight, I think another good point here. Tonight's a night where I would go small ball lineup, regardless when Embiid's off the court. You don't need to throw Paul Reed in there against this team. They don't have a ton of size. So, that tonight, I think that's where we need the adjustment needs to come to the game plan overall. Night to night, they just need to be more flexible. There's nights where D Melt shouldn't start and Tyrese Maxey should. Like there are nights like that. So I think flexibility is the biggest thing that they need to adjust to going into the playoffs. Maybe they don't, maybe they do. But nonetheless, this is a game they should win tonight, Dylan.
I'm not trying to be cruel.
How you feel?
Poke fun. But and I know we're away from the Montrezl Harrell experiments, and I don't need Trez back on the floor.
Yeah.
I don't need to see Paul Reed play anymore, man. I know there's a lot of the fan base. Well, Doc doesn't give him a chance. You make of what your opportunity is. And I know he's not on the floor for offensive reasons. I texted you at Saturday night. There's Paul Reed. My God, he doesn't have a clue what to do with the basketball. He's if you're talking small ball five, he's undersized to play center in the NBA. He's not a big guy, right? He's not great with his fouls. There's a reason he only played 4 minutes. And no, it's not because Doc didn't want to give him an opportunity. Scotty, I can't watch the kid get the ball in his hands by the rim anymore. I can't do it.
I feel you.
Did he hit the side of the backboard the other night?
There was some wild shot that he took, and I remember when you texted me, and then he ran down the court and did something stupid on
he did everything right. He hustled, he got the offensive rebound. Hey Paul, kick it out.
Threw it over.
Threw it off a jump hook off the side of the backboard.
Not even close. The tip-ins aren't even close.
I'm really not trying to be an asshole. I don't need to see it anymore.
It's almost like Matisse at it's like a Matisse level of offense, but in a 6'9" body of Paul Reed, right? That's what it is. He has no offensive IQ.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild to watch. And the wilder thing is,
you see him in the G League.
The wilder thing is the Paul Reed pioneers on Twitter, man. It's so weird to me.
We're watching.
Paul Reed is not blowing my mind right now just because he's better than Montrezl Harrell.
Right. We're watching a different product when he steps on the floor, I guess. Don't get me wrong. He makes plays defensively sometimes. There's a block here and there. There's a steal. There's an alley-oop. There's plays here and there.
The Paul Reed pioneers.
Yeah, I'm good, man. But anyway, man, we're at the 33-minute mark here. We should have tip in about 30-35 minutes. Let's get into best bets, predictions, and more. Best bets for tonight's game. We're going a different route. We discussed it. We thought about it before the show started, and we'll try to get you guys some winners here. So first and foremost, we are starting with one of our standout stars from last game, PJ Tucker. Over half a three to make 1-3 tonight at -140 for PJ Tucker on DraftKings Sportsbook. He has hit at least two threes in his last 3 games. He's more and more confident. You and I have discussed day in and day out his performances against the upper echelon of the NBA, the more talented teams. He shows up in these big moments. His former team, I expect him to knock down a corner 3 tonight, possibly early. He hit the first points of the game against Boston, or Memphis. It might have been, actually. It was Memphis. Then we'll get to DeAnthony Melton. Now, our last 2 props, they're buying high, man. These numbers are low. The juice is there because these guys have been slacking as of late. DeAnthony Melton over 2.5 rebounds. We mentioned
for a lot.
Miami Heat, 25th in rebounding. They do not have a great advantage like most teams do over the Philadelphia 76ers struggles on the glass. -120. His number is normally 4.5. He has not hit this mark in his last 6 or 7. The number is dropped. I think he helps out tonight. I think DeAnthony Melton grabs 3 rebounds. Same with this guy. He has not hit this mark in his last 5, 6, or 7 games. George Niang, over 1.5 made threes at +130.
It's honestly insane.
2 threes for Niang, +130. All of that juice. Hop on it now. I know the trends are telling you otherwise. It ain't like Niang's not going to hit 2 threes the rest of the season, bud. So I think he does it. If it was in Miami, there's something about George Niang in front of this home crowd against a team like this. maybe third quarter, whenever the case may be.
Yeah.
He's hitting 2 threes tonight, Scotty.
Yeah, I love the George Niang play because, like you said, it's not like he's not going to hit that mark for the rest of the season. And quite honestly, I'm sure George Niang, after the last game against Boston, because he's struggled against Boston all season, but I'm sure after that last game, the way he was shooting the ball, he stayed after in the gym, get some shots up. I'm sure George knows what he has to do to keep himself in the playoff rotation. I think that's the biggest thing as we go down the stretch. And to your point about PJ Tucker, even, right? He's on his P's and Q's because we're getting closer to the major basketball to be played, right? And it's right in time, and that's why I love the PJ Tucker play over 1-3 tonight against his older team. There's plenty of motivation there. Niang, there's plenty of motivation there to ultimately play better. You have to play better. You have to knock down those shots because, as we said earlier, or as I said earlier, I don't want to speak for you, but as I said earlier, if George Niang's not hitting the 3-ball, he can't be in the game. Like,
Right.
what if George Niang is not hitting the 3-ball? Why are you not playing Jalen McDaniels in his minutes? Right? He's a better defender. He's lengthier. He's more athletic. Right? So those are the things that George Niang has to think about, and I think ultimately that motivates him, gets him locked in for tonight. And then the D Melt thing, that's similar to similar situation, right? The more D Melt plays down to this level that he's been playing at the last few games, the less minutes he's going to get, the more gravity that's going to go towards putting Maxey back in the starting lineup, giving Shake more opportunities. So D'Anthony Melton needs to step his game up. What better night than tonight against a poor rebounding team? So I'm with you all around on the best bets tonight, man. Great picks.
Absolutely, man. Before we wrap this one up, give me your star of the game and prediction for the 76ers tonight.
Yes, sir. So we could go a bunch of different directions, man, because as we've mentioned throughout the show, there's a bunch of guys that need a bounce-back game on this team. I do have the Sixers winning this one 115-106, around that mark. Funny enough, the Miami Heat average 108 points a game. They give up 108 points a game, so they basically even on the season. I think we outpace them at that 108 mark. I think we get up over the 110 mark, and I think they actually stay below the 108 mark tonight. My player of the game, my star of the game is going to be Tyrese Maxey. I don't know if I'd call it a star of the game. I just want a bounce back game from Tyrese Maxey. That's what I'm looking for. Maybe 15 plus points, 2 threes, maybe mixed in there, 3 assists. It's not about the numbers for me with Maxey. It's about the look, the comfortability. We just want to see happy and rejoice Tyrese Maxey that's having fun playing basketball and not thinking too much. So I like to see Tyrese Maxey bounce back. Had a decent series against the Heat last year in the playoffs, right? He was the second best player against the Heat last year. So
also had that Heat game without Harden and Embiid last year, where he led them to a win at the Wells Fargo Center, scoring 30 or 40, whatever the case was. So he's had a pretty solid history against Miami in his young career. I like it. That's where I was going to go.
You know what I mean? Who's guarding?
Tyler Hero's getting put in a pressure cooker if that's the case again. They'll just pick on it.
Exactly.
I love the pick. I think the Sixers get a win, man. I think they bounce back, especially within Miami. Not saying that they're going to lose the next game in Miami, but get this win before you go on the road.
Yeah.
They just lost to Boston on their home floor. I don't think they're going to lose again. They're the better offensive team. They're very similar defensively. When it goes and gets tough, I don't know who Miami has that's going to outdo Harden, Embiid, Maxey tonight on the offensive end. Sixers will come away with the win. I'm going to go a little outside the box here for this reason. Going with Tobias Harris for the reason that I need to see stacked performances against the higher competition over this stretch, right? Tobias Harris had one of his best games, maybe the best game I've seen Tobias Harris have against the Boston Celtics specifically. Yeah. Let me see that again tonight. I'm not asking for 8 for 10 from the field, 4 for 5 from 3, whatever the case was.
Hey,
give me 16. Right? Give me 15, 17 from Tobias on efficient shooting. Give me 6 rebounds. Give me 3 assists. Give me a good effort defensively. That's all I'll need to see. Don't give me 9-point Tobias Harris tonight.
It's such a great point, Dylan, because, we're so far out from that Miami series last year in the second round. Like it's hard to remember everything that went down in that series because all you really remember is that the Heat beat the Sixers in the second round and there's another second round failure. But looking back at that game, you remember Jimmy Butler's comments after he eliminated the Sixers. You picked Tobias Harris over me, and that should stick with Tobias Harris, man. If if you have any time, and don't get like everybody out there knows that I am a huge Tobias Harris supporter. I like the guy. I really like him off the court. Like he's just a really good dude. He's a good basketball player, but he's an even better dude. But that dignity, that pride has to kick in there, and you cannot get dismantled tonight by Jimmy Butler. And whether it's one-on-one, whether it's Tobias having a very poor shooting night and Jimmy Butler having a great scoring night, none of that can happen right tonight if you're Tobias Harris. You need to be locked in and ready to go and prove yourself, right? Maybe even try to outperform Jimmy Butler. I don't know if it's possible, but try, man. Try. That's where the pride kicks in. So I love that pick.
Well, I'm with you, man. Guys, that is going to wrap up maybe the longest pregame show for the Sixers that we have done here. A lot to get off our chest. The Sixers, even coming off a loss, are still rolling. They look to get back in the win column tonight against the Miami Heat at home, 7 o'clock tip. Let's go Sixers. Guys, if you are new to the channel, make sure you check us out on Twitter at DSM_media. Subscribe to the YouTube page. That's where you can find all of our pregame live shows, and it's the best spot to join the conversation throughout all of our great shows here on DSM as well. For myself, for Scotty, for DSM Media, have a great rest of your night.
Go Sixers.
And Philadelphia has it.